Have you ever felt like you need to dial down your emotional intensity to be taken seriously? That your intuition is dismissed as all in your head? That expressing anger or demanding what you deserve makes you difficult? How many times have you swallowed words that burned in your throat because you didn't want to be seen as aggressive? How many times have you ignored that inner voice, that deep knowing, just because you couldn't explain it logically to others? Maybe you grew up hearing that you were too sensitive. Maybe you learned that crying was weakness, that feeling was exaggeration, that your perception of things, the one you pick up in the subtext, in glances, in the energy of a room, didn't matter as much as the facts. Maybe you became an expert at adapting, at twisting your nature to fit into a frame that was never made for you. The truth is, that you are not too much nor too sensitive. The truth that few have told you is that you carry powers that, when fully awakened, threaten structures that depend on your silence and your adaptation. You carry ancient, archetypal forces that were systematically taught to you as flaws. And this is not your failure. It is a meticulously constructed system. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist and pioneer of depth psychology, spent decades studying archetypes, those universal psychic forces that inhabit humanity's collective unconscious. He realized that each of us carries not just one, but multiple archetypal faces. And in the feminine, he identified something crucial. Modern society has not only created a narrow and suffocating ideal of womanhood, but has deliberately or unconsciously suppressed 4 essential powers that every woman possesses. These powers are not pretty metaphors. They are real, psychic, vital forces. When you have permission to live through them, you feel whole, rooted, connected to yourself. When you suppress them, because you were taught they were shameful, dangerous, unacceptable, you fragment. And you live a life where you function, where you deliver, where you perform, but never, ever, truly breathe. Jung taught us something revolutionary. What you repress doesn't disappear. It doesn't evaporate. It goes into the shadow. And from the shadow, these powers continue to act, but in distorted, hungry, sometimes destructive ways. Your repressed intuition becomes chronic anxiety. Your suppressed anger becomes corrosive resentment or disproportionate explosions. Your denied desire becomes existential emptiness. Your ignored need for cycles becomes endless exhaustion. And here's what this means in your daily life. You feel that something is wrong, but you can't name it. You achieve things, but they don't fulfill you. You relate to others, but you're never truly seen. You take care of everyone, but who takes care of you? You seek solutions, therapy, self-help books, productivity courses, but nothing resolves it because you're trying to fix symptoms of a much greater betrayal, the betrayal of being taught to deny your own nature. In this video, we're going to name the 4 feminine powers you learned to hide. We're going to understand why society needs you to remain without them. And we're going to open the path for you to reclaim them, not as adolescent rebellion, not as chaotic rupture, but as an act of wholeness, as a return to what has always been within you, waiting. Because reclaiming them doesn't make you perfect. It doesn't make you free from pain or conflict, but it makes you whole. It brings you home to yourself. And that, my dear, is the only path to a life that feels genuinely yours. A life where you don't just survive, but breathe. Where you don't just function, but thrive. Where you're not a ghost haunting your own existence, but the full, embodied, undeniable presence of who you truly are. These 4 powers have been with you all along. They've been knocking, whispering, sometimes screaming, trying to get your attention through symptoms, through breakdowns, through that persistent feeling that something essential is missing. And what's missing isn't out there. It's not in the next achievement, the next relationship, the next self-improvement strategy. What's missing is the parts of you that you were taught to lock away. And here's what makes this so painful. You didn't choose to lock them away consciously. You were conditioned, programmed, shaped by 1,000 small moments from childhood onward, each one teaching you that only certain parts of you were welcome, that only certain expressions of femininity were acceptable, that to be loved and safe, you had to be less than you are. But you can choose differently now. You can choose wholeness. You can choose to stop fragmenting yourself for the comfort of systems that were never designed for your flourishing. You can choose to reclaim what was always yours. So stay with me, because what we're about to explore isn't just theory. It's not just psychological concepts or ancient wisdom. It's your life, your suppressed powers, your path back to yourself. And understanding this, truly understanding it, will change everything. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's trace the origin of this fragmentation you carry. You didn't wake up one day and decide to split yourself in half. You didn't consciously choose to silence your intuition, to swallow your anger, to dim your desires, to push through your exhaustion. This was taught, carefully, systematically, starting before you could even name what was happening. From the moment you were a little girl, you were being sorted. Your brother could be loud, rowdy, assertive. That was boys being boys. But you were taught to be sweet, to share, to not take up too much space. When you cried, you were dramatic. When you got angry, you were having a tantrum. When you knew something in your bones but couldn't prove it with logic, you were told you were imagining things. The construction of the acceptable feminine is one of the most insidious forms of social control ever created, because it doesn't look like oppression. It looks like love. It looks like protection. It looks like guidance. Be a good girl. Don't be difficult. Smile, sweetheart. Boys don't like girls who are too assertive. You'll understand when you're older that sometimes you have to keep the peace. And so you learned. You learned that only part of you was welcome at the table. The gentle part, the compliant part, the pretty part, the quiet part, the part that made others comfortable. The rest of you, the wild, the fierce, the deeply knowing, the cyclical, had to stay locked away, fed just enough to survive, but never enough to thrive. But here's what they don't teach you in school, what isn't written in the parenting books, what your mother probably couldn't name, even though she lived it too. This fear of feminine power is ancient. It goes back centuries. Throughout history, women who embodied these four powers fully, women who trusted their intuition, who expressed righteous anger, who lived according to their own desires, who honored cycles and transformation, were dangerous to the existing order. They were the healers who knew the medicine of plants, the midwives who held the threshold between life and death, the wise women who could see through lies and manipulations. They were the ones who wouldn't marry for survival, who wouldn't stay silent when violated, who gathered with other women and shared knowledge that made them less dependent on patriarchal structures. And what happened to them? They were called witches, hysterics, mad women. They were burned, drowned, locked away, silenced. Not because they were evil, but because they were whole. You carry the memory of this in your bones. It's why even now, when you're about to speak your truth, your throat tightens. Why when you're about to set a boundary, Your heart races with a fear that seems disproportionate. Why, when you consider living according to your own rhythm, a voice whispers, "Who do you think you are?" That voice isn't you. It's the echo of centuries. Let me show you how this plays out in your life right now. At work, you watch yourself shrink. You have an idea in a meeting, but you wait to share it because you need to phrase it perfectly, softly so you don't come across as pushy. Or a man says your exact idea 10 minutes later and gets praised for it. And you smile because to show frustration would make you bitter. You work twice as hard for half the recognition because ambition in you is unseemly. When you're interrupted, you let it happen. You've learned that taking up space comes with a price. In your relationships, you perform a different kind of shrinking. You suppress your anger when your partner dismisses your feelings because you don't want to be the nagging girlfriend. You ignore that intuitive knowing that something is off, that he's lying, that this friendship is draining you, because you tell yourself you're being paranoid. You say yes to plans that exhaust you. You say yes when every cell in your body is screaming no, because somewhere along the way you learned that your desires matter less than keeping others happy. And with yourself, the cruelty is perhaps the deepest. You judge your natural cycles as weakness. When your body asks for rest, you call it laziness. When you feel the pull to create purely for pleasure, you tell yourself you haven't earned it yet. You rationalize everything because feelings can't be trusted. You're at war with your own nature. Even with other women, this conditioning creates fractures. You compare yourself, you compete silently. You judge her for being too emotional or too cold. Because we were all given such a narrow path of acceptable femininity that we fight each other for the few spots available. We police each other. We perpetuate the same suppression, woman to woman, because we're all terrified of stepping outside the lines. This is the root. This is where it begins. And I need you to hear this. You didn't choose this. None of us chose this. You are not weak for having internalized these messages. This is a system that has been perfected over generations, designed specifically to keep you fragmented, to keep you questioning yourself, to keep you pouring your life force into everyone and everything except your own wholeness. You are not broken. You were broken into, and now you're waking up to it. Now let's talk about the cost, the real cost. Not the philosophical one, but the one you live every single day. Here's what Jung understood that most people miss. When you suppress an archetype, when you deny a fundamental part of your psychic structure, it doesn't disappear. It goes into what he called the shadow. And from the shadow, it continues to exist, continues to demand expression. But now it's distorted, hungry, desperate. It emerges sideways, in ways you don't recognize, in ways that hurt you. When you suppress your 4 feminine powers, you don't become peaceful. You become fragmented. You check all the boxes: career, relationship, social life, self-care routine. But there's this persistent, gnawing sense that you're living someone else's life, that you're performing a role, that somewhere along the way, you lost yourself. The exhaustion you feel isn't normal tiredness. It's not the kind that sleep fixes. It's soul exhaustion. The bone-deep depletion that comes from spending every day pretending to be smaller than you are. From monitoring every word before you speak it. From holding back the tidal wave of everything you actually feel, think, know, and desire. You wake up already tired. The to-do list scrolls through your mind before you even open your eyes. You reach for your phone, seeking external validation, distraction, anything to avoid the heaviness in your chest that you can't name. You call it stress, you call it hormones, you call it just how life is now. But it's not. It's the cost of betraying yourself, day after day, in tiny, socially acceptable ways. The anxiety that lives in your body, that tightness in your throat, that knot in your stomach, that racing heart, your therapist might call it generalized anxiety disorder. But what if it's not a disorder? What if it's your body's intelligent response to a life that isn't true? Your nervous system knows when you're lying. It knows when you swallow words that need to be said. It knows when you ignore intuitive warnings. And it rebels the only way it knows how, through sensation, through panic, through the undeniable feeling that something is wrong. Then there's the depression no one sees, the functional depression, the one where you still show up, still smile, still perform, but inside there's a flatness, a grayness. You achieve things and feel nothing. Success that comes from a diminished version of yourself can never fulfill the whole of you. Maybe you've noticed the void, that creeping sense that nothing quite fills you. Not the promotion, not the relationship milestone, not the vacation. There's always something missing. What's missing is you, the real you that you buried to be acceptable. In your relationships, when you hide half of yourself, you can't be truly seen. And when you can't be seen, you can't be truly loved. You attract partners who need you to stay small, because when you show up diminished, you send out a signal that says, "I won't challenge you, I'm safe." You draw in the emotionally unavailable one who doesn't have to match your depth, the critical one who confirms you're too much, the passive one who lets you do all the emotional labor. Even in good relationships, there's an intimacy ceiling you can't break through. Because how can someone truly know you when you're hiding your intuition, suppressing your anger, diminishing your desires, pretending you don't need rest? The resentment builds insidiously. You say yes when you mean no. You accommodate and adjust. And then one day something small happens and you explode with a reaction so disproportionate that even you won't understand it. But it's not about the dishes or the thoughtless comment. It's about the 1,000 times you abandoned yourself to make others comfortable. Or maybe you don't explode. Maybe you just withdraw. You build a fortress of politeness and functionality, and no one can reach you anymore. You're technically present, but emotionally gone. Your body has become a stranger. You've lost the ability to hear what it's telling you. Your menstrual cycle is something to manage, to overcome, to hide. You force the same productivity whether you're ovulating or menstruating. Your intuition has been rationalized into silence. You feel something off but can't prove it, so you ignore it. And later, when proven right, you don't trust yourself more. You just feel stupid for not listening. Your body speaks in symptoms: tension headaches, digestive issues, chronic pain, hormonal imbalances. Fatigue doctors can't diagnose. Your body isn't broken. It's sending messages. We're not aligned. This life, this pace, this constant betrayal, it's killing us. And your creativity, your purpose. When was the last time you created something purely for yourself? Not for Instagram or productivity, just for joy. If you can't remember, that's your wild self starving. Maybe you're in a career that pays well but drains your soul. Every Sunday night, that dread creeps in. Is this really it? And you push it down because acknowledging it means making terrifying changes. Here's the cruelest part. You've been trying to fix this. Just be more confident, they say. So you take courses, practice power poses, but it doesn't work. You're trying to have confidence in a version of yourself that's already diminished. Practice self-care. So you take baths, light candles, meditate. and for 20 minutes you feel better. But then you return to betraying your intuition, swallowing your rage, denying your desires. Self-care becomes a band-aid on a bullet wound. These solutions fail because they treat symptoms while ignoring the root cause. You've been split from your own power, from the 4 essential forces that make you whole. And that's what we address now, because you can't heal fragmentation with more fragmentation. You become whole by remembering what was always there. So here's the truth they never told you. The truth that changes everything. You are not missing something. You are not broken. You don't need to become someone new. What you need is to remember who you've always been beneath the layers of conditioning, beneath the programming, beneath the fear. Jung identified that within the feminine psyche, there are 4 archetypal powers. Not roles you perform, not personalities you adopt, but fundamental forces, as real and essential as the elements themselves. These are psychic structures, energetic realities that exist within every woman, whether she's aware of them or not. When you suppress even one of these powers, you fracture. When you suppress all 4, as most of us have been taught to do, you live a half-life. But when you reclaim them, when you give yourself permission to embody all 4 fully, without apology, something alchemical happens. You don't just feel better, you become whole. You come home to yourself. Let me name them for you. The first is visceral intuition. This is knowing that doesn't come from your thinking mind. It's not logic or analysis. It's the knowledge that lives in your body, in your gut, in your bones. This is the power of the wise woman, the one who knows things without being told, who walks into a room and senses the undercurrents, the unspoken truths, who has prophetic dreams, who gets feelings about people that later prove devastatingly accurate. Society suppressed this power because a woman who trusts her own perception cannot be gaslit. She cannot be manipulated. She knows when she's being lied to. She knows when something is wrong, even if she can't prove it yet. And that makes her dangerous to systems built on deception. You felt this power trying to reach you. Every time you had a gut feeling and ignored it because it seemed judgmental. Every time you sensed danger and rationalized it away. That was your intuition trying to guide you, protect you, show you truth. Reclaiming this power means honoring your knowing even when you can't explain it. It means trusting the wisdom of your body over the opinions of others. Your sensitivity is not weakness. It's access to layers of information others cannot see. The second power is sacred anger. Not destructive rage, but fierce, protective, boundary-setting force that says no and means it, that sees injustice and will not stay silent, that refuses disrespect or violation, that protects what is sacred, including yourself. This is the warrior woman, the one who will not be diminished, who defends her territory, her truth, her body, who is willing to be seen as difficult if that's what maintaining integrity requires, who understands that sometimes love looks like a boundary. Society suppressed this power because angry women disrupt the system. A woman who can access righteous anger doesn't accept mistreatment quietly. She doesn't shrink when challenged. She demands reciprocity. She refuses burdens that aren't hers. And she cannot be exploited. You've felt this power trying to rise, every time you swallowed words that needed saying, every time you smiled while being disrespected. That was your sacred anger trying to protect you, restore balance. Reclaiming this power means learning to distinguish anger that destroys from anger that defends. Your anger is information. It tells you when boundaries have been crossed. Your anger is your ally. The third power is wild desire, not just sexual desire, though it includes that. This is your hunger for life itself, for pleasure, for beauty, for experiences that make you feel intensely alive, for dancing, creating, tasting, feeling, pursuing what calls to you even if it's impractical. This is the lover, the one motivated by pleasure, not just duty. Who chooses things because they bring joy? Who knows what she wants and pursues it? Who is sensual, embodied, unashamed of her appetites? Who lives in full color into? Society suppressed this power because a woman who knows what she wants doesn't wait for permission. She doesn't sacrifice her desires for others' comfort. She takes up space. She claims pleasure as her birthright. And that kind of woman can't be controlled through guilt or shame. Reclaiming this power means giving yourself permission to want, to desire, to pursue what lights you up without justifying it. It means reconnecting with your body as a source of wisdom and pleasure. Your aliveness, your joy, your satisfaction. These are not luxuries you earn through suffering. They are your birthright. The fourth power is the transformer, your connection to cycles, to death and rebirth, to natural rhythm. This is the power that knows how to let things die, how to rest, how to release what no longer serves, how to honor the seasons, times for action and times for stillness. This is the wise crone, the one who understands that not everything lasts forever, who can sit with endings without frantically preventing them, who knows that death, of relationships, identities, old versions of yourself, is necessary for new life to emerge. Society suppressed this power because it demands constant productivity. A woman who honors her need for rest, who says, "I'm in a winter phase," who allows things to end when they've run their course. She can't be exploited for endless output. Reclaiming this power means honoring that you are not a machine, that you have cycles, that there are times to push and times to rest, that some things need to die so new things can be born. Here's the metaphor. Imagine you've been trying to dance your entire life with 4 limbs tied, and people kept saying, "Just dance better." But it was never you. It was the ropes. When you reclaim these 4 powers, it's like cutting those ropes. At first, it's disorienting, but gradually you realize you were never meant to dance their dance. You were meant to discover your own. When you stand in all 4 powers, trusting intuition, setting boundaries with sacred anger, pursuing desires, honoring cycles, you don't become perfect. But you feel like yourself, deeply, undeniably yourself, like coming home after being lost for years. So now you know the names of the 4 powers that were taken from you. You know why they were suppressed. You know the cost of living without them. And you know that they've been inside you all along, waiting for permission to emerge. But knowledge alone doesn't change anything. Understanding the cage doesn't open it. So let me give you something practical, something you can begin today, not to fix yourself, because you're not broken, but to start the reconnection, to begin the conversation with the parts of yourself you've been ignoring for so long. This week, I want you to choose one of the 4 powers, just one. And I want you to observe it, not to master it, not to embody it perfectly, not to revolutionize your entire life overnight, just to notice it, to pay attention when it's trying to speak to you. If you choose intuition, practice this. When you feel that subtle pull, that gut contraction, that inner knowing that doesn't have words yet, pause. Don't override it with logic. Don't talk yourself out of what you're sensing. Just ask, what is my body trying to tell me right now? You don't have to act on it immediately. You don't have to explain it to anyone. Just acknowledge it. Give it space. Let it know you're listening. If you choose sacred anger, try this. When that heat rises in your chest, when you feel the impulse to defend yourself or set a boundary, but you've trained yourself to swallow it, stop. Name it internally. Say to yourself, my anger is showing me that a limit was crossed. My anger is trying to protect something sacred. You don't have to express it outwardly yet if that feels too scary. But don't dismiss it. Don't shame it. Don't call it an overreaction. Honor that it's information. If you choose wild desire, experiment with this. Notice what genuinely lights you up, not what you think should bring you joy, not what looks good on Instagram, but what actually makes your heart beat faster, what pulls you forward, what you daydream about when no one's watching. And then give yourself permission to want it, even if it seems frivolous, even if you can't justify it with productivity. Just let yourself want without immediately shutting it down with all the reasons why not. If you choose the transformer, practice this. Pay attention to where you're forcing, where you're pushing through when your body is asking for rest, where you're clinging to something that's clearly ending because you're terrified of the grief or the unknown. And instead of forcing or clinging, just ask, what if this needs to die so something new can be born? What if my exhaustion is not laziness but wisdom? What if letting go is not giving up but trusting the cycle? That's it. That's your starting point. One power, one week, simple observation. Because here's what I've learned. Wholeness doesn't come from grand gestures or dramatic transformations. It comes from tiny moments of choosing yourself, of listening to the whispers before they have to become screams, of giving yourself permission, in small, manageable ways, to be more of who you actually are. And I want to know, which of these 4 powers do you recognize you've most suppressed? Which one is asking right now to be reintegrated? Is it your intuition that you've been overriding with logic? Your sacred anger that you've been swallowing to keep the peace? Your wild desire that you've been postponing until you've earned it? Or your need for cycles and rest that you've been calling laziness? Share in the comments below, not just for me, but for you. Because naming it, declaring it, even to strangers on the internet, is an act of reclaiming. Your courage to name what you've suppressed might be the exact permission another woman needs to do the same. And here's what I need you to understand as we close. You don't have to choose between being accepted and being whole. That's the lie they told you. The real choice is between a life where you fit into someone else's narrow definition of who you should be and a life where you finally have room to breathe, to expand, to be all of who you are without apology. The 4 powers, visceral intuition, sacred anger, wild desire, and cyclical transformation, they've never left you. They've been in the shadow, yes. Distorted by suppression, yes. Emerging in ways that sometimes felt destructive because they had no healthy outlet. But they've been there, waiting, patient, ready for the moment you'd turn toward them and say, I see you. I'm sorry I abandoned you. I'm ready now. This is that moment. You weren't taught this in school. Your mother probably couldn't name it, even though she felt it. The culture won't celebrate you for it. But your soul recognizes truth when it hears it. And somewhere deep inside, beneath all the conditioning and fear, you know, this is the way home. You've been dancing with 4 limbs tied for long enough. It's time to cut the ropes. Not all at once if that's too terrifying. But one rope at a time. One power at a time. One choice at a time. The question isn't whether you're ready, and the question is, are you willing to finally breathe?